All right. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm joined by an awesome man, a new friend, Traver Boehm. How are you, brother?
Great to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I first caught wind of you through Connor Beaton, my men's coach. I'm part of his group, and you guys trade podcast episodes and collaboration all the time.
Yeah.
And just love that message that you guys were talking about male leadership in the United States today. And that one hit home for me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I ask guys, do you look upstream and do you appreciate the leadership that you're seeing? And I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your affiliation is. Do you look at most men and say, yeah, that's a leader I want to emulate, especially those in the public eye? And most guys just stare at me like I've slapped them in the face and go, no, that actually has nothing to do with the leadership that I want. But now, as you know, more than ever, men not only need to know how to lead, but we have to know how to lead ourselves. That's the incoming question I got flooded with when lockdowns happened is, what do I do? What do I do now? What do I do now that my purpose may have shifted or I didn't have one? And now I'm sitting home by myself and I realize, wow, I don't want to just go back to X, Y, and Z that wasn't fulfilling me. So yeah, this is, I think, the greatest leadership opportunity at least the US has ever had.
Yeah, I had a feeling that you were going to tie it back into us as men, as individuals, because the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. And I'm not, well, first of all, I'm not going to emulate current leadership, but I also can't say that out loud if I'm not leading myself either, if I'm not proud of the leader that I am for my own life.
100%. And who's going to follow you if you're not self-leading, right? If you can't lead you, how do you expect to lead someone who has their own hopes, dreams, fears, traumas, relationships, etc.? We've got to be willing to look in the mirror and say, okay, where do I want to go? Where do I want my family to go if that's applicable? Where do I want my community to go? Where do I want my church to go? My group of guys, my city, my country, etc. But most importantly, what am I building? Why am I here beyond just collecting a paycheck, paying taxes, and eating cereal? Like, what do I want to give to the world? How do I want to serve? I frame it in the question all the time, which was framed to me, so it's not original. What are you building? And when I ask guys that question, most of them stop and they'll tell me what they do for a living. But I ask them, like, what are you actually building? How are you carving out a piece or creating a piece of the world that fits the unique vision that you have for how you want it to be? Like, literally, how do you want to wake up? Where do you want to live? Who do you want to be sleeping next to you? What do you want to be doing for work? How do you want to feel in your body? What do you want your body to look like? Get engaged with that. And if you can say it in a sentence, right? I'm building a movement of 1 million men who express their masculinity through the primal and the divine. It's pretty goddamn clear what I'm doing. Granted, there's a lot of stuff that comes off of that. But from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I know exactly what I'm doing. Or I know exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I also have a filter then, Dave, to go, oh, I got this opportunity. It doesn't really fit with what I'm building. It's super shiny and fun and exciting, but maybe I don't want to do it because I'm building something. Or maybe I do because part of what I'm building hopefully is fun and enjoyment as well.
Yeah, man, that totally hits home because if you ask a man that question and he gets the deer in headlights look, like I've had that before in my life too, of like when I first started my fitness business, well, who do you want to work with? And I'm like, oh, I'll work with everyone. Well, I had a purpose, and that purpose was to share the benefits of fitness and nutrition through fitness and share the benefits for mental health through fitness and nutrition. That's a great filter and a great lens to make decisions from. But I had shiny object syndrome and
Right.
I had some nice guy syndrome pop up in there too. So if I were to hear that question and not know the answer other than, well, the answer is how I collect a paycheck.
Right.
Well, then I think what it hits home for guys initially is like, I'm not disciplined. I don't think I can have the discipline it's going to take to fulfill that purpose that I want to live.
Okay. So that man has a couple challenges, right? And he has a couple opportunities. One, get around men who do have that discipline. Find men's groups, find an accountability partner, find a buddy, join something. Realize that perhaps if you don't have the skill set on your own, you've got to go seek it out. If I was just going to say, I'm going to build a body that reacts like a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I'm not going to do that sitting in my living room by myself, like just absorbing jiu-jitsu from the cosmos. I'm going to
Or
have to go join
YouTube.
a jiu-jitsu school. Yeah. Or YouTube. Right. So when guys, when they come up against that resistance of, I don't have the discipline, well, that's like saying, I just have a weak muscle. It just needs training. It just needs practice. And it needs the willingness to admit you don't have it, and therefore either need to hire it or join with people who do have it. So it's all doable, right? For most men, this may feel like it's an overwhelming idea of, oh shit, I have to build something. You're building something whether you want to or not. It's just a matter of, is it conscious and is it what you want? Or are you building a legacy of following other people's ideas, which is okay if it's conscious.
Hmm. Yeah, I find my energy gets drained when I'm off purpose. Like a couple of days last week, I got off purpose and I just felt like the energy drain. And then you can't
Mhm.
see it on this video, but I've got a whiteboard with like my 3 columns. Okay, what am I doing for my fitness business? What am I doing for the podcast? And then my third and largest column is a personal development column.
Right?
Like if my daily task that I'm doing right here in front of my computer is not on that list, I'm off purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's conscious. That's focused. You created the 3 lists. You are the one, or we're around guys who taught you to do that. Have guys that check in with you. Have guys that you're checking in with. Are around other people who are building something similar. That's I think the missing piece for so many men. And if we go back to jiu-jitsu as an example, or any other complex skill, most of us say, well, I don't know how to do that. Period. End of sentence, end of chapter, end of book. As opposed to, I don't know how to do that, so let me seek out ways to be around people who are. Let me fill that knowledge gap or that accountability gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Jiu-jitsu is a perfect example of a skill that uh, that will show you your gaps. And you cannot walk into a jiu-jitsu school with an ego. It will get smashed into
Yeah.
the mat
when
every
a
day.
when a 15-year-old girl chokes the shit out of you, who weighs half of what your body weight is, you're gonna go, okay, I'm gonna swallow a little bit of pride here. I'll be a little, and then she does it again, and then does it again, and then everybody, and also, yeah, I
Yeah.
look at anybody who's done 6 months of jujitsu as humbled. You sir, or you ma'am, have been humbled immensely.
Mm-hmm. That's a great introduction to who you are as a man. Like you pretty much just like spewed it all out, but that's not the full story. And the reason why you and I connected, I think you might have been my first stranger that I met up with in person since shelter in
Amazing.
place occurred.
Yeah.
You know, uh, I knew you were in Denver. I'm like, hey man, let's meet up. I don't mind going to the park and like standing 6 feet away, but like that wasn't good enough, you know. I'm seeking out men who are further along and have what I want. And you were one of those guys.
Thank you.
But let's go back a little bit. And you owned a
Sure.
CrossFit gym at some point in your adult life.
I did.
How'd you
Yeah,
get from there to here?
oh boy. Yeah, I owned a gym called CrossFit Pacific Coast in Santa Barbara, California. And I did that for about 6.5, 7 years. And my life changed very quickly towards the end of that tenure. I was married. My ex-wife was pregnant. And very quickly, just to make a long story short, we lost the pregnancy. My marriage ended very soon after, and my business partnership as well. There was so much change and turmoil in the air that didn't survive either. And so all of a sudden, I went from having a clear purpose, knowing why I was here, having a structure, like a brick and mortar representation of it, having a relational representation of it, to kind of landing flat on my ass and going, oh, I just got the shit choked out of me by the universe. Okay, something wasn't right here that needed to be corrected. And the asterisk of that was I had done almost no self-development work on the inside. I had done infinite numbers of training on deadlifting, and other sport related stuff, business, marketing, etc. But I'd never really dove into who I am, what makes me tick, what are the traumas that I've experienced in my past, what's the pain that I'm walking around with, and why am I reacting the way that I do in the world. I hadn't had that like rock bottom moment where I went, oh shit, you know why I'm here? Because of me. Up until that point, most things had been other people's fault, the world's fault, bad luck. And so I did a deep dive, man, of a year of therapy, men's groups, a wild personal journey around the world. I'm talking about it tonight, a month in pitch blackness, a month living in the woods, volunteering in hospice. Like I did the like find yourself year after landing flat on my face. And it sparked this knowing that, holy shit, if I'm walking around at 39 years old with so much trauma in me that I haven't looked at, who else is doing this? And if I work through it, yeah, and I feel so much different. My relationships change, my finances change, what I'm doing for expression in the world. I feel free to write, to speak, to hold works, etc. And wow, how can I share this with everybody and anybody? And then here was what was unique. Men started coming to me over and over and over. And it was confusing to me, brother, at the beginning. It's like, why the hell are guys contacting me? I was an acupuncturist, so I'd had a lot of like feminine clientele or female clientele, and didn't see myself in the men's space. It just was like, I don't know, I don't want to be here. I want to go back to writing or running a gym. And over from having thousands of conversations with men, started to see the patterns of, oh, wow, a guy without a purpose is relatively damageful. Like he will go out and damage people. A guy who doesn't know what he's supposed to do in the morning. Like we're guys, and this is off, I know we're going to shoot off topic a bit, but guys are like German shepherds. Like if I say, hey brother, here's your task. It's like shoving a bone in your mouth. And you're like, oh yeah, this is the best day ever. I'm just going to chew the shit out of this bone. But if we take the bone away, or there is no bone, you're like, I'm going to go chew the shit out of the couch. I'm going to trash this house. I'm going to go fuck every female German shepherd I can find. Or I'm going to go lie in the corner and just wait to die. I'm going to get depressed. I'm going to be undermotivated. I'm going to become a shell of who I am. I remember when I wrote my first book, I was fresh out of the divorce. I didn't know what to do next. I'd finished that year project. I was living rent free, so I had no real responsibility and was just wasting my time. And a buddy of mine called and said like, hey, this isn't okay. Like I'm watching you do jack shit every day. Why don't you write a book to men about why don't you write a book about what you would have wanted to hear from the day your marriage ended? And suddenly, Dave, it was like up at 6 a.m., doing push-ups and pull-ups, running to the beach and back, writing for 5 hours, eating better food, meditating. It was like suddenly like, oh, that's right. Someone just shoved a bone in my mouth and was like, go to town, boy. and everything changed. Yeah. So how I went from there to here is a number of long stories, but let's just say I got humbled. I lost everything I thought I could lose but my health, and then realized that a lot of it wasn't what I wanted. A lot of it was just accumulation to try to solve a feeling that was, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. And I don't know what to do about this pain that I won't even recognize I have.
Yeah, that almost parallels. Thank you very much for sharing. That's a fucking great story. And it almost parallels my own. Late 2017, gone through a couple of breakups within 6 months. And I'm like, all right, I got to take a look at who is responsible here. So I took straight up ownership. I wasn't sleeping. So I pretty much just took like 90 pages worth of blog posts that I had written to personal trainers about building a business. And I put it into one Google Doc. And I'm like, I wouldn't even read this. This is dog shit. I mean, I wrote these blogs and I wouldn't even read it because there was no story involved. So I started to fill in the gaps between these blog posts. it poured out of me, up at 3:30 in the morning, typing for 2 hours before I went to work for 3 hours, and then sitting in the office at work and typing for 2 more hours. It was a very therapeutic process for me to just like word vomit into a computer that I don't care if anybody ever reads it. Honestly, like I
Right.
wrote that thing for me.
Mm-hmm. How
But
many
it,
great works have said that? I wrote that first book for me.
uh-huh.
Right. I know it's changed thousands of people's lives, but I didn't care. I was like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody reads this. This is me re-engaging with the world. And listen
Yep.
to the similarities of like, oh, you got something and you had a way to express yourself. I think that's something that so many men are missing too. If we don't know how to express ourselves, we don't have permission to express ourselves. So we numb ourselves. We find ways to not, I don't want to say waste time because that's not true, but to use time less skillfully as opposed to asking this question. And it's a fucker of a question. How may I serve? And the root of how may I serve so often is how do I go back and look at all the ways that I fucked up or I've been hurt or I'm hurting people and then use that as fuel to help transform myself and then take that experience and give it to someone else. Right? There's a cliche, and I'm going to screw this up, is like your worst experience is someone else's survival guide or something to that effect, right? Like
Sure.
your survival story will save someone else's life, like something like that.
Yeah.
That it gives purpose to the suffering, it gives meaning to it. You work with humans every day who like you make them suffer for a living. But if there was no benefit at the end of that, we would just call you a torturer. Like, what does he do? I don't know. He makes me like squat up and down 500 times. Why? No reason. He just hates me. Right? It's like, no, you're gonna have great ass and glutes and heart rate and all this. So when we get to see a after effect of, oh, my suffering helped this person, then it taps into this more service-oriented, altruistic piece that I think so many men are also challenged by not having because we're taught to live and acquire for ourselves. Get the house, get the car, get the girl, get the money, get the fame, get the recognition. And then so many guys get that and go, I'm empty. I feel like shit, right? The asterisks by the first 39 years of my life, like I was the guy who had it all,
Mm-hmm.
but yet I was miserable. How does that equate? Like, what about the Instagram meme that shows the guy with the car and he's happy? And then I have the car and I'm like, I have to get high every day. What's going on here? Where's the disconnect? Oh, it's about the internal world. It's about service. It's about helping. It's about contributing. It's about leading. That's when we go, oh, I wake up full. I don't care about the car. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the divine mindfuck. You're probably going to get multiples of the car. You just won't care if you have them or not. And that's where
Yeah.
things get weird. Like
Mm-hmm.
until you don't care, you won't have. But when you don't care, it'll come if you're serving.
That's right. And I think where we hesitate and where we don't go all in with this idea is that we're not going to get instant gratification. We're not going to get those results that you're talking about where clients just flood to us immediately. And that's why people stop maybe 2 weeks in, a month in to their passion and their purpose.
Mm-hmm. How long has it taken you to get your business to the point where, right, it's quote on autopilot? It's the old cliche of overnight success just takes 10 years.
It does.
There
Yeah.
were years, I mean years, as in like every Christmas in a row being like, I hope this is the year where things were not quote working for my business, for my mission, for my movement, etc. But I just had to have faith that I wouldn't be guided to do this without something. And then boom, it starts to happen. It starts to happen and it starts to happen. And then people will give you this wonderful sentence of, oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you're so lucky. You're such a great speaker. Like, do you have any idea of the thousands of hours I've spent speaking into a mirror, talking to coaches, being on stages, getting ridiculed, having to pretend like I'm a chicken and dance around to get over insecurities? Yeah, I'm super lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That resonates with me so much because in 2017, while I was in the second of those two relationships, I started with my team. I had 3 trainers working with me in my gym at that time. And I sat down in a team meeting. We did it monthly, and we wrote out our business goals for the next year. And my business goal was $250,000 in revenue for the year of 2018. I was doing my best to manifest that in 2017, the fall. And then I went through this breakup, and then I wasn't sleeping, and then I hit rock bottom, and then I found therapy. Guess what, Traver? 2017 was 90 plus. 2018 was $24,000 in gross revenue.
Woo.
When we set our sights on that stretch goal, that one in the future of like, okay, 2017, next year is my year. That's when I'm going to hit six figures. That's when I'm going to hit multiple six figures.
Yeah.
Guess what? The universe and God had something else in mind.
Yeah.
And I was I took that so personally. My confidence took a hit,
Right.
and relationships weren't going well. But guess what? I started this damn podcast during that time. I wrote a book during that time. It's sitting right here, like I haven't published it yet because to answer your question is like, I have yet to arrive to that completely automated, this shit's on autopilot, because it's not happening unless I do the disciplined, focused, on purpose work.
Mm-hmm. It's the mix. It's got to be internal and external, right? It's story. I tell people this is success. Listen to this. It's a mix of the stories you believe and the stories you're telling and the outer structures and the outer functions. Like I can have the best idea in the world, and if I run around and write it on a napkin and like leave it on a bar top, people may not find it. Or I can have the worst idea in the world. I can have the best idea in the world, but I don't believe in myself. I'm walking around telling you I'm the guy that has the best ideas that never come to fruition. I just fucked myself. Both ways, I fucked myself. There's got to be looking in the mirror and saying, is this in alignment with what I believe? Is this in alignment with my talents? Does this light me up? I can't say that enough. Does this light me up? Because if it doesn't, someone who it does light up is going to eat you for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You want to talk me about men's work? I will go for 12 hours straight because it just fucking lights me up. I was doing it when I wasn't getting paid, right? There was no money involved, and I was talking to men. And so I'll beat you if you're like, I'm in this for the money. Okay, good luck. First of all, good luck.
They're welcome to join your men's group. You'll help them out along the way because they're going to need it. So one of those moments along the way where you're putting in thousands and thousands of hours was 45 minutes that you had set up a men's group, a talk that you wanted to give, and one guy shows up.
One guy.
Tell me what you learned from 45 minutes of bashing your philosophy down this guy's throat. And he says, hey man, I just want you to help me not go to McDonald's on a daily basis.
Yep. I'm in, imagine Brooklyn, New York. I'm in this big building. I do a meetup, it was a meetup group. Like I threw it out there. I think I paid for an ad. And I had one guy show up to my meeting. And I remember thinking like, okay, stay positive. One is a country mile different than zero, guys. So I'm super excited. I like nail this guy, like masculine, feminine dynamics. The masculine's the mountain, the feminine's the storm. We need purpose, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, he says, I've been following you since your fitness days on Instagram. You helped me lose 20 pounds. And I went, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Like, let me just switch hats here. And that's kind of the old hat, but let me put the old hat back on. Tell me about your life. And he's like, here's the key, brother. Every morning I have 2 McDonald's breakfast burritos. And I went, okay, you ready for 15 seconds of cure? Like I'm going to fix your problem in 15 seconds and I'm going to do it for free because you came to my meeting. Never step foot in a McDonald's again. And he was like, you know what, brother? I can't do that. I'm like, why can't you? First of all, you work there? Like, nope, their coffee is amazing. And I went, okay, let me put my logic brain here. So coffee leads to burrito, leads to overweight, leads to health problems. Coffee is the key. I was like, I'm going to solve your problem in another 15 seconds. Go buy a French press. Like you're done. This is it. You're welcome.
Do it at home. Yeah.
Right. And make it at home. And long story short, he actually did end up losing weight and sharing a really cool story with me. But why that's important is I went back and was hanging out with my buddy and told him the story and was like, yeah, I'm frustrated. Like I was hoping I'd have more guys and I was hoping this guy would be more interested in men's ideas. And the next morning we got up and went to the gym at like the crack of dawn. My friend, his name's Adam Cobb, great guy, said, when was the last time you had McDonald's? And I went, oh man, I got to think about that. Like, I don't know, like 20 years. I said, I don't eat that shit. That's civilian food. And this is literally like 5:15 in the morning. He pulls his phone out and he starts recording me. He goes, what do you mean by civilian food? Like, tell me more about like, what is civilian? Who are civilians? I said, take a look at, and we were roommates at the time. I said, take a look at our apartment, man. We're two single successful guys. There's not a drop of alcohol in this house. There's no drugs in this house. We don't even own a TV. It's a very nice apartment. But you and I spent last night after the meeting talking about how our relationship with our fathers has shifted us as men. This is not a civilized conversation. A civilized conversation would have been us a six-pack deep talking about sports or nothing at all. And we wouldn't be up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go crank out squats. And so we went down to the gym, and the whole time that word was just ripping through my head, Dave. And words are a thing for me. I was like, man, civilized, huh? I don't want to be that. I do not want to be that. I actually want to be uncivilized. And if I am uncivilized, I will have a different set of results than what I believe is the civilized outcome, which for men is overweight, addicted, probably heart disease, diabetes, an alcohol issue, maybe a drug problem, probably divorced, not a healthy relationship with their kids, unactualized, disempowered, and perhaps suicidal, because these are big problems in the male world. That to me was the civilized outcome. So I wanted the uncivilized outcome. So the beauty of that story is it's also a great lesson in that I showed up, I gave this guy 100%. He asked for what he wanted. I gave him what he needed. I thought it was not an important moment in my life. And yet it was one of the most important and pivotal moments of my life. Had I not dared to throw that meeting, had I not said, okay, you're here, I'm here, let's do this. Had he not been honest, and had I not been honest, I don't know. I have no idea where I'd be right now or what I'd be doing.
I totally hear that, man. And what I'm thinking as I'm going through this is you intentionally deconstructed your night with another man and you went deep into it and you didn't just stay surface level. And that's what we're getting out of a community of 1 man, 10 men, 15 men, 20 men, is we have a sounding board and a place where we can deconstruct our lives, and others will call us forward on our bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're here. That's our alignment between you and I is we both agree on that.
Mm-hmm. We'll and there's twofold. We'll call each other forward. We'll be like, hey man, I know you can do better. You've told me you want to do better. I've seen you do better. So I'm going to ask you to do better. That's part A, and that's really important for men. And part B is I'm also going to celebrate your wins with you. So one of the most enlightening parts of me running a men's group was on the early days of doing so, how many guys came in and said, hey, you know what? I really don't have anybody else to share this with who won't become insecure because I tell them. Like, I made $100 million last year, or I'm living the life of my dreams. And all of us were like, fuck yeah, amazing. Keep crushing it and tell us how you're doing it, but keep crushing it, as opposed to being jealous, trying to tear that man down, trying to shame him in any way, not celebrate him, making it about us, making it about our egos. So those two are places and spaces that a lot of men don't get to be in. And I'm not saying celebrate from an egoic standpoint. He wasn't like, look at me, I am better than all of you and I am the best, or none of these guys were. It was, wow, I just really want you guys to say, wow, I see you. I see you at your worst and I see you at your best, but the entire time you will be seen. And that's so vital.
100% that one of the reasons why we get caught up in that civilized trap is that we believe that other men are our competition. And in the community that we're a part of, oh, hell no. Like it's almost a really big blessing that the work that we're doing now in the Alliance is virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, there's other guys from men in the group, but we're all doing it via Zoom. And that, like, it takes away that puffed up chest, and it takes
Mm-hmm.
away, oh, he's taller than me. You know, he's broader shoulder than me.
Right.
Like,
He's got more
I don't
hair.
think that, yeah. Oh, you know, I turned 40 on Sunday,
Oh,
and
happy birthday,
I'm,
brother.
thank you very much. I know we're close to the same age. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm so thankful that I have, you know, a receding hairline, but at least most of my hair, it's salt and pepper, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree with you. And what happens in those meetings, right, is you get a group of guys together. And I've been in groups where they've done this and say on day 2 or day 3, I want you to go around and say, what was your early projection of the other men in the group? And you'll have guys be honest and be like, I was intimidated by you because you're bigger than me. I saw that you pulled up in a BMW, and so I projected that you were a rich snob. And they'll go around, and lo and behold, everybody will have a projection of everybody. So it's not just one-sided. And then they'll say, how do you feel now? They go, God, we are kindred spirits. We both had that same childhood trauma. God, we both were divorced. We both have a sick child. We both have BMWs, and we're both broke. We realize that we're actually connecting on a level that's so much bigger than the outer surface. Or I see your courage. I see your honesty. I watched your handshake as you told us that story about getting broken up with. I feel you. I think that's the word. Like, I can actually feel you as a man when I've dropped past the whole, like, oh my God, his car is a 2014 and mine's a 2013. So somehow I'm going to project that he's superior to me. We get past all that egoic bullshit and into our hearts. And then you realize, fuck, these are just brothers. Doesn't matter what color, doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter what sexual orientation, doesn't matter what geography. We all share the same pain, and we've all shared the same hopes and dreams. We may not have walked in the same shoes, but that's the level that we're really connecting on.
Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot about what stories we tell ourselves, whether we're walking into that room or walking into a first date or we're sitting in solitude on our couch. What stories are we telling ourselves that are true and untrue?
100%. And how
Yeah.
much of those stories are guiding your day to day, right? And then if you tell men this all the time, ask yourself, is that true? Like capital T true? And if it is, it's got to be provable. So if one example of, oh, you're not good with money, that's the story that you're walking around with. Tell me a time you were, you actually, there was that year that you were, so you're not good with money. You just keep telling yourself that you are. What if you told yourself a different story?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I can go on for hours on the power of story. Story is how we connect. Story is how we fall in love. Story is how we sell war. Story, like every country is its own set of stories. Every relationship is a set of stories. Every man's life is a set of stories. Yet the story is looked at through one particular lens. What if we shifted the lens and looked at it from another way?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite lines is that the future rewrites the past. Now think about that. Think about something that you thought to be true for 2 years, and you lived that truth for 2 years. And then, oh, you found out later that it wasn't true. Now you have to go back and go, God, all those nights I sat in bed going, I'm not good with money. So-and-so left me because I wasn't tall enough. Like whatever the story is that we've made up. And then you find out, wow, she left because she was whatever the X factor was. And you go, oh man, the past wasn't true. And that's continually happening. So I think it helps guys actually let go of like, nope, this has got to be true. There's no other way to see it. There's only my way. And I'm definitely not projecting through a series of lenses or traumas or pains or hopes or fears or insecurities. That's not happening. I alone have the the hold on what's true and what's not true. Okay. Take a breath. Look at it from a different angle, analyze the story, shift the story, right?
Yeah.
You still hear me?
It's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. Must have been the phone call that I had coming in.
No worries.
Absolutely, man. Like you're talking about the stories that we connect and fall in love with the stories that we sell war with. And those stories begin our connection with another person, whether that be in a men's group or whether that be with our partner for the time being, a season, a reason, a lifetime. And the stories are what we connect over, but how we really get to know somebody is through shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
we've got a big shared experience going on right now that is capital T trauma.
100%. The whole world, but mostly the country, right? Think of how many people have suddenly woken up and said, I can't outrun this pain anymore. Or it's everywhere, right? We're in America, we're facing both the virus and racial issues. They're not going anywhere. So often before, something would spike for 3 days. And we go, oh, it's captive. There was a shooting in Vegas. Man, we really need to look at mental health, gun laws, and something else. Okay, 3 days later, we're back to the Kardashian, back to whatever we're looking at. And these two issues are just staying. They're like, hey guys, we're not leaving. You're going to have to address us. We're going to have to address intolerance. We're going to have to address health issues. We're going to have to address the media. We're going to have to address our reactions personally to each other as humans. Man, we may actually have to sit down and try to figure out how to get along. Oh, shit.
And get along without physical touch too.
Get along without our whatever it was that makes us okay in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you're a jiu-jitsu guy. I know so many guys that were okay in the world because of jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is just, it's irrelevant, but it's relevant to this part of the story where that may have been dance. It may have been work. It may have been whatever they did.
Yeah. It's interchangeable for sure.
Interchangeable, but you've lost the thing that made you okay. So now we have to go, okay, how do I become sovereign as a man or women, if you're listening to this too? How do I become sovereign as a human? How do I start to draw and be okay in the environment that I'm in, knowing that it may be like this forever or it may change tomorrow? But either way, I have to start doing some inner work to go, what was jiu-jitsu giving me that I wasn't giving myself? Okay, how do I draw on a new source to get that knowledge, that feeling, that okayness in the world? It's a really, really unique time. It's a really hard time. I want to acknowledge that for a lot of people, this is a really, really hard time. They've lost their thing, right? They may not have a podcast. They may not be able to write. I know people that have said, I can't do what I do in the world. And I can't imagine having that experience and not going a little bit off kilter.
Yeah. And when you were saying jujitsu makes me okay in the world, it's so much more than that. It keeps me grounded spiritually. It helps me mentally focus because if I'm not present on the mat, I will get beat or hurt. It keeps me physically grounded and centered on a path that's movement-based. Masculine is very doing focused, like move, do. Well, that's an hour and a half sometimes of just straight up doing. And I've been going back to the jiu-jitsu school on Fridays for the last month. And last week I added in Wednesdays. So now I'm counting down the hours on this Wednesday. I've got 2 hours left until I can go smash some people, and that was taken away for a little bit. And then we got mats for the house and we were able to train at home.
Yeah.
That's interchangeable like you were talking about. But what this time frame in my life did for me, and it took me 2 months, 3 months to process this. I'm a slow processor. Like I really do take my time understanding who I am. That's why it's taken me 40 years to get here. And it'll take me another 40 years to get there. But what it took away from me, and this is such a blessing, it took away a semblance of control. That facade that I had control over what happens tomorrow or what happens in 6 months.
Right.
And it forced me to take 100% ownership over my life. And what can I adapt to? What can I face? And what can I produce out of that adversity?
Think of the word sovereignty, right? Like that's or agency.
Mm-hmm.
Agency, giving someone agency is giving them healing, giving them health, giving them responsibility. Agency is such a powerful idea. And for so many humans, especially in the US, where we're still like knee deep in Corona, our understanding that things can change tomorrow went from this vague spiritual idea of like, oh, a tree could fall on my house, or I could wake up and lose everything, to actually this is going to happen a couple more times in the next few months. So let's reorient ourselves and change our relationship to the external and really develop a relationship with the internal. So if tomorrow the Denver gets shut down and I literally can't leave my house, I'm okay. If it gets blown wide open and they're like, go outside, run around in the parks, go climb the mountains, go to the gyms, I'm still okay. I think so many people were living, and I say this with pure compassion, but living below zero, living where the jujitsu, the dance, the parties, the drugs, the whatever it was getting them to zero, as opposed to being the add-on, like, I'm fine, I'm actually great, and these things are bonuses in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine an entire society like that. We're good. Granted, I want and miss these things, but I'm okay without them. I'm sovereign without them. That's the actual definition to me of freedom. And that's, if we circle back to the beginning of the importance of having a purpose and a mission, right? Like, my mission didn't change because of Corona. My mission didn't change because George Floyd got killed. It got shifted. It went, okay, I'm not going to go do a world speaking tour where I'm live. I'm going to bring it online. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm not just speaking to wealthy white men. I'm going to be engaged in the conversation about inequality. The mission didn't change, but it absorbed and brought in some other ideas. So thus the blessing of having a mission. So for you guys listening to this, this is your work. This is your life's work right now, is to ask yourself, why am I here? Where is the intersection between my talents, what the world needs, and what lights me the fuck up? And right in that middle point is your bliss. And I'm not going to tell you that you're going to wake up every day and it's just sunshines and kittens and paychecks. We'll be honest, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, quite.
But this feeling in your gut will be like, I got my ass kicked today and I'm okay. Where before it might have been, I had a great day, but something's still just not right. I think that's the swap that a lot of guys have trouble accepting. Like, brother, I've been broker than broke since launching this movement. And I've made more money than I've ever made in my life since launching this movement. But when it was days where I was like, hey, I need to borrow $50 to get something to eat today. That's when I still had that, like, but I'm okay. Right. And in the old life, there were days where I'd made, $20,000 in a month and was like, I am bankrupt on the inside. That's the shift.
And man, that's a hell of a share. And I really appreciate it. Like, that hits home for me. And to wrap it all up, to kind of put it all together, we've talked about discipline. We've talked about purpose. And you talked about bringing us back to zero with these things that don't ultimately matter. And what I kept saying to myself in my head of like, oh, he's talking about coping skills. He's talking about numbing, things that numb us and things that we use to cope that are not going to help us be our sovereign selves, bring us to zero. As opposed to being above water or above that baseline.
Yeah, for sure. It's the internal, right? I love the quote, I think it may be Blaise Pascal, about meditation, that if people could just learn to sit in a room by themselves for 5 minutes and be okay, the world would change. And that's how I feel about meditation. If you can sit quietly for 5 minutes with yourself, then brother, you got a lot of work to do. And I'm sorry that's where you're at. And you got a lot of work to do. Because when you can sit with yourself alone in a room for an hour, everything else takes care of it. Everything else is gravy after that. It's a bonus. And it's even more enjoyable because it's a bonus. It's like, oh, this is dessert. I don't need this to survive. I'm not getting my nutrients are full. Great. It's like every day I ate a salad. That's what that kind of inner work is. It's like vegetables.
Because we know it's good for us, but it's not our favorite thing to do.
No, it's there. Most days I'm like, meditation. And then
More
afterwards, like,
broccoli.
or exactly, like I'll eat it first. It's why we meditate first thing in the morning, right? First thing when I get a plate of food, I eat all the vegetables. I'm like, steak. But
Hmm.
literally learning how to be sovereign, how to be whole, how to deal with trauma, how to alchemize pain, how to speak it, how to like go to therapy. It's okay.
Hmm.
Join them, like
Hmm.
how to be human. This is where I
Hmm.
think society and technology have knocked us away from our nature and have knocked us away from nature. And so we live in this way that doesn't really jive with how we're supposed to. And we wonder why we have complications and we have challenges, right? You spend a week in the woods with a bunch of guys and everything will change.
Yep. I'm headed out for a men's retreat this weekend through church. Two
Amazing.
nights, a tent. Last year we were in a cabin, but this year it's tents, and I'm so pumped for it, you know. And um, just like I can't sit still because I've got jujitsu on Wednesday night. I have to skip it Friday night. Thank God I'm available to do it tonight. But 3 days, 2 nights in the woods with the men that I've connected with over the past year plus that
Yeah.
share a faith, a common language, and a common direction in our lives, and all they want is to see me win.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Please.
Okay. So you're talking about as I was researching you and I checked out your website, you said 8 out of every 10 men's suicide is because of a divorce or a breakup.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to take away from our conversation today personally is that I'm okay with or without that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, in the context of our podcast, what sovereignty truly means.
Right.
I don't need this relationship. I want this relationship.
Yeah.
And that could be anything in my life.
Right. You know, it's fascinating, Dave. I was maybe 2 years into my journey or a year and a half in, and I watched a guy on stage. You can take my wife, you can take my kids, you can take my business, you can even take my health. And because I know who I am and I know what I'm about and I know why I'm here, I'm going to be fine and I'll get it all back within 4 years. So it was this duality of so many guys, when they lose or lose something, they think, I'll never get it back. I don't have, how will I ever, and you do. And also they wake up and go, I was that thing. I was my marriage. I was my business. And I remember Najwa Zabian in a talk saying, if you make someone your home and they leave, you become homeless. If you make someone your identity and they leave, you become nobody. And I just sat in the audience and I cried.
Yeah.
Thinking like, that's what I did. That's why I wanted to kill myself at the end of during my divorce. Because I didn't have a sense of self. I didn't know who I was or why I was here. Right. It's this weird, almost, it's not a game, but it's this weird feeling to be in especially for men, when we say 80% of my time, energy, and focus is on this mission, which means that all the other stuff can come and go. I don't want it to. Like, I don't want a cycling door of partnerships and friends and things. No, not at all. I want the depth of intimacy, but I'm not going to grab it and grasp it, because then it's just either going to slip through my fingers or I'm going to crush it. Either way, we're going to strangle the shit out of it. Like, don't go. But if I just go, hey, it's cool. Stay right here. And by the way, I'm going to crush shit over here. I'm going to have good days. I'm going to have bad days, but this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
That's such a shift. It's such a powerful shift, especially for men who are purpose and mission driven creatures as we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm getting a little choked up because on my column on this whiteboard, underneath my personal list, the top one, right underneath self-led, it says cupped hands versus clenched fist. And I came up with this vision in my mind maybe a year and a half ago of a stream of water being poured into a cupped hand or a closed fist. Guess what? Over the closed fist, it just pours over the outside. And I can't even get any of it. And this is what love, this is what life, this is what abundance is in a nutshell for me.
Mm,
And I'm so glad that you brought it up too, because it resonates with me. It's number one on my list over here.
amazing, right? You
Yeah.
have this purpose, you have this idea, and then everything else just comes and sits with you.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean you don't feel like, I don't want guys to hear this and be like, I won't care if my girl leaves me. Like, no, it's going to suck. It's
Yeah.
going to suck.
Uh-huh.
And you know, you're going to be okay. And you know, you have this group of men. Like when I heard you say, I'm going to go spend 3 days in the woods with a group of men who know me, all I could think was, think of the nourishment that you're getting from that level of intimacy. Think of that. Like that's coming from the bottom up and filling you. You're going to come home on Sunday night like a full man. Full. How many men wake up and literally say this? I feel empty. I feel lost. I feel like a shell of myself. And if you were to say, hey, you know how you solve that? You go out in the woods with a bunch of dudes and you live in a tent. They'd be like, you, sir, are insane. Like, no, 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 not insane. Just a little bit crazy. So give it a try. But it's that nourishment, right? And you also get nourishment from your mission. You get nourishment from your purpose, and not nutritional and not just mental. Like your heart gets nourished, your stomach gets nourished, your being gets nourished. That's something else I'd love to bring to the male idea, is that so many men are starving. They're starving for the nourishment of intimacy. And guys who just heard the I word and went like, oh shit, what's he talking about? Intimacy?
Yeah.
That's fucking terrifying. Yes, and it's nourishing.
Hmm.
Yes, and trust me, you want it. It will feed you in a way that cars, pussy, money, drugs, alcohol, all the things, that's like cotton candy. Tastes really good. Trust me, I love it.
It's all
And
sugar.
it's all sugar, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to having your foot cut off because you have diabetes 5 years later. So no bueno, right?
Yep.
we'll go with the nourishment of intimacy.
Right. Well, Traver, thank you so very much for joining me. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if your message resonates with them today?
You can find me on Instagram at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm, or check out my website, www.manuncivilized.com.
Boom. That's amazing. And if there's one thing that we didn't get to today that you want to leave us with, what would that be?
I would say, especially since we're talking to men, that the paradigms you've been given are broken. That I saw two very clear paradigms in my early look at this: the sensitive new age guy paradigm and the 1950s Marlboro man paradigm. And there is a new paradigm, a third paradigm, and that is the uncivilized paradigm. That is both the primal and the divine. That is the celebration and honoring of what is deep in our bones as masculine, and also calling in what is so desperately needed right now, which is consciousness and a respect for the feminine, for the planet, for women, for emotion, and for our hearts. Like, guys, I asked Michaela Boehm, who's one of my deepest teachers, what's the one thing you wish men knew about ourselves and other people knew about men? And she stopped and she sat there and she said, I wish you guys would just accept how sensitive you actually really are. And I went, holy shit. Like literally just got chills telling you that story. Okay, good. You're allowed to feel, and you have to feel. And that all the problems that we listed, the statistics about depression, alcohol, suicide, etc., they don't come from feeling too much. They come from a lack of feeling. So go find yourselves a group of men. My group, Connor's group, any church group. I don't care. I literally don't care. But if you take nothing away from this call but this, go find a good group of men and join them.
Amen, man. Thank you so very much, Traver.
Cheers. Go choke the shit out of people, man.